Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Well,
you got a tie on or not?
no, not today. I
I'm
thought
good.
I thought
Makes me
for
feel more
for
comfortable
beer.
when you don't have a tie on. I get stressed out when you have a tie on.
I I had a fun time teaching that class. I learned something from Jesus about even if you're a degenerate gambler,
Yeah,
the probability matters more than the payout.
I think that's true.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
It was like
you're
40
like,
years I've been trading and I've always been tempted. I guess it's the lotto ticket thing, right? You're like,
yeah. The lotto ticket thing is like if you're okay to take the lotto ticket, that's fine. But so many people, so many traders do, and then they're upset when they don't get the move, right?
yeah, it never happens. Like Art Cashin used to say, the guy who writes that thing for Payne Weber, or used to be Payne Weber, now UBS, who's on CNBC all the time. He says, betting on the end of the world is a bad bet.
True.
Yeah, for real. How was your day? What'd you do?
Uh, I botched a Tesla trade. So I was looking long. I said to the group, I'm looking because it gapped up. I was like, don't be surprised if it comes in, and then that's where we should buy it. I bought it off the open. I sold it for a small profit. It pulled back. I didn't buy it again. And I think everybody else made money on it except me. So that was fun.
Paul Hornblower, who's related to the people who started Hornblower and Weeks. You can see their Wikipedia page. It was like a huge brokerage operation in the 1890s. Always said that as a trader, it's okay to cover like you did. This is what he said. And he used to pound home the fact that if you did not reinitiate, then you were a failure as a trader.
I get a big fat F for today.
I know, right? I'm like, who thinks like that? Like, it's okay to cover, but you have to reinitiate because you know
no, no
you're
gold star for the fridge.
but yeah, worth thinking about.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question for you. Last night when we were on the webinar and we were talking, you had mentioned that your life emulates your trading and vice versa. How I asked the question, how? Like you said you'd save it for tonight.
Yeah. Um, and then I just quickly said to Jesus, I said, isn't it easier to be yourself in and out of trading? And then Charlie said, well, then he had talked to people who have like this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde persona when they trade. And in my case, I was schooled by Stottlemyre and starting in 1991, and he was always saying that the market is an organic process, right? We can't control it. You all the cliches, right? And you
Mhm.
want it to be in step with an organic process. And so, all right, so I have to then dance with the girl who brought me, so to speak. And so that kind of gets rid of what I think is important. Sort of, I have to I have to do what the market thinks is important. And in the whole all those meditation retreats I did for 14 years, for as long as a month at a time, silence. The idea was that the self-projected sense of you is an illusion, and that the idea through meditation was to see that the correct conclusion of all of that is that the only thing matters is your actions, because the you doesn't exist. It's a complete fabrication from your own side. And in a sense, you can tie the two together. In other words, there is no me if I go looking for it. If Ranch cuts his arm off, he's still Ranch. If Ranch thinks something different, he's still Ranch, right? So we can get rid of the physical, we can get rid of the mental. If Ranch, changes friends, changes job, he's still Ranch. In other words, there's many iterations of Ranch that would still be raunchy if things changed. In other words, the projected sense of self of you with your two arms would be different from your side, but I would still call you raunch if you just had one arm. And so the basic understanding is that you don't really exist. You're a self-exist. The you that you think exists is a complete projected illusion. And then to be in step with the market, you still need the ego strength to say, I think, and hit the mouse. But then once you have the position on, you have to observe the market as though your position doesn't matter. And so it's a long roundabout way of saying that when you go skiing, the mountain doesn't care if you have a good time or not. Or if you go surfing, the ocean doesn't care, and the market doesn't care the same way. And so I try and integrate the fact that the self is a projected illusion and that the market doesn't care, similar to any other inanimate object, whether it's the mountains or the ocean or, you know, your wife, or I don't know. I don't know, but I just think it's more easy to be authentic all the way through life. And then you can see it in relationships with other people, right? In order to be a successful, I'm not married, but I would imagine as a husband, do you think it's possible? Do you think it's the best way is to just be in step with your wife rather than trying to change her?
Are you asking me?
Yeah,
No, no. Because if you, anytime you try to do anything other than improve on yourself, it means you haven't done the work on yourself to begin with. So how can you begin to attempt to try and change somebody else if you haven't completed the work on yourself, right? Like it's the difference between being alone or being lonely, right? If you're
yeah,
alone is not a bad thing, doesn't mean that you're lonely. It means that you've worked enough that you're good being alone, you're comfortable with yourself, but being lonely can lead to other types of issues where if you try to get into some type of relationship or relationship where you find yourself trying to change somebody else, it's probably a projection of you not working on those other things about yourself that you don't know how to fix.
yeah, for real. Like self-esteem needs to come from an internal reference point rather than an external reference point. Um, but yeah, I just think from my case, it appears that my trading and my personal life are a lot alike.
And do you mean that just by virtue of who you are? You don't mean that your style of trading is the
Right.
style of person that you are. It's just they're one and the same, is what you're saying.
There are many corollaries between the markets and behaviors with other people.
I see.
Um, I mean, if cause and effect is a valid function, then you want to make sure that you're not letting your personal life bleed into your trading. So you live an ethical life to make sure you feel good about yourself so that you make the right decisions under stress trading.
Hmm.
Right?
That's
If you
interesting. I have a question for you though, because when I trade, I don't just trade one way, right? Like I
Mhm.
have multiple strategies and I have many different types of positions going at one time. So I guess that kind of says that I'm a sociopath, maybe
I have a friend who
split
worked
personality.
yeah, I have a friend who was a Volkswagen mechanic, and he said there was a guy who fixed every problem at the dealership, also a mechanic, with a hammer. And
Just
and
keep
but
hitting it.
you right, the idea is that you have, in regards to your trading, right, and both of us, and I'm sure everybody else does, right? Like you have different tools in your toolkit. And then Wags used to always say, we show up to work and you don't know if you're going to be sculpting charcoal or oils. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's a philosophical, and it's not was not by design in my case. I just find that um, The flip side, you could argue that sometimes you take your trading mentality home, and I think that could be not good, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good point. I used to take home, I don't know about you, but I used to take home if I had a bad day, if I had losses. I used to take that home, and it was bad if it was on a Friday because that meant the weekend was going to be shit.
yeah,
And I have continued to try and change my trading style as well as discipline so that if I'm wrong small and I'm not upset. And if I win, I typically win on the large side as opposed to the other way around. And that correlates to me having a happier existence when I'm not trading.
I think that's really smart. I mean, it's not exactly great copy for our show. So
I'm gonna have losses. I know I'm gonna have losses. So it's you know what I mean. I'm not that freaked out by it. I just know that I'm gonna have losses on the small side as opposed to on the big side where they're really gonna ruin my day. And it doesn't matter what day it is, right? Whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like I just don't want to be in that mode when I shut it all down and go back to my life.
yeah, it's hard.
It
Um,
is hard.
yeah, definitely. And so I hear it out there for everybody else too, right? Like it's hard. But um switching gears, or anything you're pissed off of. Did you see Biden's approval number, and are anything you're pissed off about today?
I did not see his approval number. I have no idea what it is. I'm not a big Fiesta Politico guy because I think that it creates so many um, divides among people who would otherwise ordinarily be friends, right? I think that politics similar to religion are individual beliefs, opinions, and if you try to impose your will on somebody else, I don't think that that's the right thing to do. So I don't pay that close of attention to what's going on. My middle son is really into politics. He's one of his degrees is in political science, and he always wants to try and get into the debates, and we always have to steer him away from it because we don't like doing it. It's just like, oh, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I get it. I don't, yeah, certainly not at home. It dawned on me that people in politics fight very hard to stay in politics. So you must get wealthy.
It seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it seems as though it's a fast track to accumulating a lot of wealth, apparently through knowledge. But
Well,
um,
and insider trading is the
right.
best gig on the street.
And did you see the IMF? They came out and said that the riots are going to increase because of inflation
Wait, riots where?
all around the world.
Hmm. So
Because,
are they actually inciting a riot by saying riots are coming?
right?
So I mean, does that not look like their positions are leveraged to what they're going to incite?
Build it and it will come. Field of Dream riots.
I love the conspiracy theory.
Or,
It's always entertaining.
they're just early, right? It's better to be early than late.
This is true. What do they say? If you're the first one, it's not panic. First one out the
Right?
door is not panic.
Right? That's genius. Have you been able to sell weakness yet?
No.
Yeah, I just can't. It's like I like, hey, everybody out there, I'm learning. I'm trying to sell weakness and it's not working still. So
Yep, I have not. I've only been focused on individual names and just looking for areas where I think things are going to make a turn, and placing my bets at those spots. And then if it goes well, awesome. If not, admit defeat and move on.
I did. I got out of a loser in that up move pretty quickly. Was it yesterday? And isn't it funny how we do this job and we do it in obscurity and there's no one to pat you on the back, and you can feel good about taking a loss quicker than you normally would. This is the most bizarre job. Like, hi honey, how was your day?
Yeah, if I start to explain it, my wife is just like,
So to everybody
out.
listening, we get it. We get it. And the victories are private, and they may be small, but celebrate them. Even taking a loss, I'll drink to that. I got out of a loss quicker than I normally do. And so cheers to that. Uh are we allowed to tell bad Martin Luther King jokes?
You go at your own risk. You're being recorded.
I know, I know. Probably we should avoid that. We should definitely avoid that. Hey, only 60 days to the clocks go, by the way. So I don't know where, what the weather is by you, but for most of the East Coast and up on the northern side of things, if anybody's watching, it's been cold. So only 60 days. The sun is getting higher in the sky. Oh, hey, Ron, you ever hear this, right? You sell heating oil on the coldest day of the year.
No, I like it though. How do you know it's going to be the coldest day of the year though?
Right, I don't know. And did you see stuff like copper? Should we go through that? Did you see this stuff today?
No, no,
Oh my
I
God,
don't
did you
pay attention
see?
to commodities. What happened to copper today?
Okay, it exploded. How about this?
Oh shit.
Natural gas up like 15%, crude up $1.50, silver up 40 cents, copper, which normally trades in a 3 or 4 cent range, up 15, 14 cents, and 4 cents off the highs. Silver, which is as the biggest piece of shit, up 40 cents. Even Newmont, the dog of all dogs, is trading 60, 61.
I need to
So
short them.
I, I'm not making any. And lumber, right? I mean, whoever lumber trades 6 contracts in a day, but that was a $4 number is now a $12 number.
Hmm.
And remember, like things like coffee was $1.10, is now 2.40. Sugar was like a 9 cent number, is now 18. So
Interesting.
I
Interesting.
still,
Do you think that that's just inflation, or do you think that that's artificial grab on the commodities to put pressure on other places?
these guys at Goldman the other day on Bloomberg, they were saying that commodities are still cheap,
Which commodities?
all of them,
Huh. That's interesting.
right? You divide them by the Fed balance sheet. Essentially, that's what you have to do with everything.
I'm gonna make a little note of that.
Yeah. I mean, I get the
I
fact,
don't
right?
normally trade that, but if it's going to be in a cycle, then there's a couple of things that I would look at.
I mean, put it this way, they're the cheapest thing on the map,
Yeah, I guess so.
right? And as traders, you hate to pay up. Right?
100%, no doubt.
Like, I'd rather stand out, come on, we all want to buy them on the bid and then sell them on the offer.
Yep. Yep, no doubt.
Would you rather miss your trade or get stopped out?
I don't use stops
Oh, I love that.
because they can see me. If they see me, they can stop hunt me. I'd rather use a level that I'm comfortable saying, okay, I'm not right, and getting
Uh-huh.
out, as opposed to leaving myself exposed to them when they want to run stops, because we all know that that's a time honored tradition, is to run stops. I want to be not in that melee.
I have friends who work at CQG, were doing large installs for market makers,
Mm-hmm.
and they were saying that the exchanges were providing the location and the size of the stops to the market makers.
And they're pretty easily predictable to where they're going to wind up anyway, right? those patterns continue to repeat themselves over and over. So even if they don't see it clearly, they have a pretty good idea of where they're going to be, but they can see it. I try to tell people, traders in our room all the time, I'm like, you can use stops, but you're going to get continually stopped out because you're using stops. Like there's a different way to go about it, not necessarily a better way, but a different way to go about it.
I use a time stop, where if
Oh
I'm
yeah.
wrong for like 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and then I scale out of losers.
Now that's a better way to handle it, especially if you're looking for a move in a very specific time frame.
Yeah. And so, um, hey, we have PPI tomorrow. Does it matter?
It doesn't matter to me.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you have jobs tomorrow too.
Okay.
So PPI, what are they looking for? Let me pull
Oh,
that up.
massive 10%, 10%, Raj.
Huh.
Year over year, 10%. And
Oh yeah, 9.3 to 9.9. Consensus 9.8.
I don't think a lot of people watching have ever seen that number.
It seems pretty high. Just
It
saying.
takes at 7%, that CPI prices double in 7 years, something like that. So at 10%, prices probably double in 5 years,
Good Lord.
right? And you have pets. Have you been having a hard time getting pet food? I'm seeing stuff on Twitter about pet food shelves being stripped.
No shit.
Yeah,
I have not had a hard time getting pet food, but that's an important detail.
right. Besides the price going up.
Yeah. Or I'm going to have to just sit here and like chop peas and carrots and pumpkin and cook it. Like, I don't have time for that shit. I want a bag of dog food.
Right. And so, there's all these jokes about, as women postpone their decisions to get married because they have so much invested in their education and are working on their career path to get an ROI on their education, that the pool of available men shrinks as they get older. And so the jokes are like, well, the place, instead of going to Tinder or Match, is that we should, as guys, we should go to the cat food aisle and find a date. And it's easier to find a date in the cat food aisle. But
I have a vision of that where my brain always just goes to the comedic side of something like that. And I kind of
mhm.
feel like if that was where you were going to go to find a date, then your date might be the person that has more than one cat. Maybe they have like 30 or 40 cats. And they and they and they live in less than ideal conditions. Say a trailer, for example.
You don't have a mouse problem.
So I'm like, I don't know if that's the right place to hang out looking for a date.
If they, let's see, what do we have? We have, 3-day weekend. Any superstitions about 3-day weekends coming up?
No, I
Like,
love 3-day weekends because I like to write premium on both sides of stocks that move sideways, and I get an extra day of premium burn when the market's closed at no charge to me.
and,
So
and I
that's
like
I
buying
like them.
premium on Friday before a 3-day weekend because you guys have written it cheap. So I'm buying it.
I I write them on Wednesday though, so the risk
Yeah,
hasn't been moved to next week yet.
right. Like if you can buy premium on late Friday afternoon and it's already at Monday price or Tuesday prices. So you get the whole weekend for free because everybody's thinking like that. And let's see. Uh,
somebody
anything?
somebody in here asked me if I was a market maker. I was, just so you guys know, I was never a market maker. I was trained by one. I was a broker. I had my 7 my 63, my 8, and my 24 in a long ago past life. But no, I was never a market maker.
I was a local in the ring in New York, in Chicago, in Paris. On the floor of the big board, I worked as a specialist clerk. A specialist is, in fact, a market maker, or was. There are no more.
Back, yeah.
Um, but in a weird way, you could say that locals on the floor were market makers in a weird way, but there were in the ring at the first iterations of Timber Hill. In fact, that's a story. Do you want to hear the story about how Timber Hill
Yes.
got started?
Yes.
In the 87 crash, someone bought a huge block of puts at the lows for some ridiculous amount of at a huge vol. Obviously the VIX had to have been 80, 90, 100, and we were so low they bought them down 30%. And so Petafee and Company, though, but it was just a privately held thing, sold, I think it was like the equivalent of 600 bigs, which would be what is that, 5-to-1, 3,000 puts in the mini S&P for at 100 vol, down 30%. And I think the payout was the premium that they sold it for was north of 10 million, somewhere between 10 and 20 million dollars they sold it for. And the person who bought them as soon as the market bounced was on the New York Stock Exchange index options. We had futures, and then there was a separate in options exchange trading for index puts like the SIBO did on the floor of the big board, which I think has been shuttered. Anyway, that guy went and had the exchange margin. Obviously the margins were jacked because of the crash. They were short. Petafee and Timber Hill were short puts. And so they raised margins on them 3 times. And they apparently went to the bank. Some bank gave them the money to cover the margin on the puts.
Was that the same day that Soros made that trade also, where his trader was short and doubled the order? Was that the same? Didn't that add on that same day? Didn't that add to the fire?
Well,
on the S&P?
What happened at the lows in the S&P was that it was in the ring. It was 210 bid at 200. So it was a 10 handle. All you had to do was, hit one side, walk across the ring and buy them and make 10 handles on, and it was $500 handle. Or maybe
you're just arbitraging it
in the ring. But one of the sides was Paul Jones and the other side was Soros. Okay. And I would suspect that I would suspect at the time Jones was 210 bid and Soros was at 200. And guys were coming out of the S&P pit with tears coming down their eyes because they were flipping 100 lots for 10 handles. And that's 5,000 mini S&Ps for 10 handles. And It was just a flip.
Yeah, that's like $1.5 million in like 30 seconds, right?
Right, walking,
like,
yeah.
In seconds.
Yep, in seconds. And so there were lots of stories, but that's how IB got its start, was they sold a slug of puts at the lows. They found a bank to help them make the margin calls. And then Timber Hill was started, and then Interactive Brokers was started from Timber Hill.
Oh, I didn't know that's where Interactive Brokers came from. Okay.
Yeah, right. Interactive came from Timber Hill.
Okay.
And so Timber Hill was the market maker that sold the puts. And then the exchange tried to margin them out.
Oh man.
Like to shake them out. And they took them to expiration at worthless.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's not unbelievable. That's the nature of the beast, right?
Right? Yeah.
Kill shot.
Like yeah, the guys who bought the puts had enough political power to make, to make Interactive or Timber Hill at the time try and puke them up. And
Wow.
yeah, that's a great story, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, and the same in the S&P pit, they were flipping 10 handles at the lows. But you had to be there.
Yeah.
And I watched all these guys lose their badges. Goodman Manister was a clearing firm, and they went bust, and they walked around the floor and took everybody's badge off of them and said you can't trade.
Oh, no shit.
It was like when Brevco and Man, when Corzine thing, where we walked onto the floor. I had all my money in, and they were just like, you can't come on the floor. Your clearing firm went bankrupt. You imagine that? You show up at work, you're like, huh?
Like, yeah, we didn't even bother putting your shit in a box. It's just gone.
Right. I'm like,
Now, that would be,
Mom, you're not gonna believe this one. Can I borrow money for the mortgage?
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, great, 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 great stories. And so um, you know, now stocks are collateral for the system. So it's a whole different animal.
So
But
we're getting a few questions here.
okay.
Some people want to know what kind of what's a recommendation for a book for a 3-day weekend from you. I guess they're asking me too.
Robert Thurman just wrote a new book called Wisdom is Bliss. It's pretty straightforward. If you want to do the meditation thing, it's really good. Um, Anything that's written about trading is tough because it's so outdated as soon as it's printed.
That's fair. I do like the Market Wizard books. I think that they're an easy read for a 3-day weekend, and there's some insightful takeaways in a few of those books. So I
Maybe
like those.
there's this old book called Profits in the Stock Market by Gartley. It's printed in the 30s, 40s, if you can find it. It's got great charts. The first 20 something pages of Gann, WD Gann, that famous guy, kind of the first 40 pages of how to make profits in commodities is totally worth reading. Mark Douglas's books, I guess, are good. After you read a trading book, do you ever go back to it, Raj?
Usually not. I mean, no.
Yeah, me
I mean,
neither.
I spend more time now reading what interests me at the moment, and I like a lot of historical books, especially like military. I find myself reading about World War II often just because it takes me away from other stuff, and then it gets me to think about why the world looks the way that it does today is because of so many things that happened from that event. It's interesting to me to just try and piece some of those things together after reading some of that stuff. So I'm not always 100% focused on the markets. I need a break. I need to turn my dome off from that when it comes to weekends and long weekends. I'm also really more focused on getting exercise than I am sitting down and having quiet contemplation.
George Kaufman. Well, I blew out in April of 2000, and I walked up, and George Kaufman was the head of Spear Leads and Kellogg at the time, the futures side. He came from TNS. He was a Comex guy, and I walked in, and he was the guy in charge, and I said, he goes, "You look horrible," and I said, "I just blew out," and he said, "Go make it back. We'll cover you," and I did. I made it back. Um, but I ran into him after the exchange closed at Equinox outside of a yoga class in Soho. And I asked him what was his trading philosophy these days. And he used a military metaphor like you're talking about. He said, I think of the markets as, and George is at least 10 years my senior and has as much 10 years more experience. And he's since retired in trading, and he's very chill. And he said, I think of the markets as a military operation, as though I'm looking for high ground. and then I'm defending against the high ground. And then if I get overrun, I just go look for higher ground and take a stand at that spot.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, that's interesting, as though you can use the military metaphor in trading as though prices form some sort of geographical topo map.
I like that. I mean, I think there is a certain amount of truth to that. If you were in a battle or a trade and you're losing, right? You're like,
Right?
all right, let's shut it down. Let's regroup. Let's look for either a different battle in the same name, or let's go fight a different war and a different battle.
In a different battle.
Yeah.
But that was a guy with, at the time, I had probably 35 years of experience, and he had 45 years, and he was saying there is that sort of topo or military metaphor that I think some people might resonate with, and it's certainly good knowledge from somebody. George bailed me out, and he was very.
Yeah, first of all, that's an incredible story. Like when and after he did that, did you just give him back the principal? Did you make him a
Well, I just blew
partner? Like,
myself to zero,
okay,
so I didn't go debit.
okay.
I knew enough that I'd better get out at zero.
You're like, I can't go negative.
Right?
How,
Yes.
can I ask how much did he give you to seed you back again?
He didn't. He just my account still read, my statement read like 50 cents,
Oh,
and he let me trade
oh,
because it was on the floor. We didn't have risk on the
yeah,
screen,
okay.
so we had carte blanche.
I mean, that would never happen today.
Correct. Correct.
It would never happen. There's no way you could do that. The stories about the times when you were on the floor are nothing short of amazing, because the way the market was and what it's evolved to are two completely different looking and functioning things, and yet they've made the transition so that anybody just sleepwalking past has no idea that it's so radically different than it used to be.
The function of the stock market was the formation of capital and the transfer of risk. And there was things such as professional courtesy. And that was the way it had been for 200 years when I got there. And so it's not obviously like that. And so what appears to everybody to be the way things are and will probably remain this way is not the way it was. And all I can say is that in the old days, if you sold them right and you were wrong, you usually got to look to get them back. And then, the market would dip to close to where you could scratch out. So
Yep.
in this marketplace, the exits are ugly.
Oh yeah.
And but yeah, we have so many fun stories. I mean, there's many more to come. I mean, many people, I stood next to people who sold them every tick up for handles and then just got blown out and were never seen again. The chairman of the exchange fixed all the settlement prices on the options he was short to like zero. So he would have this, and then he blew out Klein, the clearing firm, because no one there. He was the chairman of the exchange, and we all knew the settlements were wrong, but no, even compliance had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, there are stories about guys on the floor giving envelopes to the people in compliance.
That's crazy.
True stories.
That's crazy.
Okay. So, and you couldn't go in the coffee ring. That was that was reserved for the Italian people. And I couldn't even walk into the copper ring. It was like, you know, it was just it was a club. You were not allowed. So
You had to sit there and throw punches to get yourself in the door.
No, that was the bond ring. The bond ring in Chicago was like all these guys who, when you ask for direct, you go drive in the fields, and if you ask for directions, the guy would pick up the plow and point. Then he got a job in the bond ring in the Board of Trade in 1980. It was it was it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And you didn't even give your name when you made a trade, right? It was like, it was like Goldman sells them, and they would be like Merrill buys them. And it was assigned to the clearinghouse, not even to the individual when you made the trade.
That's crazy in itself too, because the only accountability is the word between the two traders, and that's it. And
Oh, fuck yeah.
if you didn't have that integrity, then I'm sure that was probably your last day, right?
Well, yeah, obviously those are, you can read those stories all over Twitter,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've had guys walk up to me and say, I traded with you. And I said, no, I traded with the person next to you, and had to write him a check for 10 grand. And, and I did trade with the person next to him. So, yeah, I mean, there were very few, the stories, they were mostly honest mistakes. There are very few stories over 30 years or 30, I guess 30 years on the floors, where people intentionally tore up their cards. And there are stories about that, where people just tore up the card
Yeah.
and said, I never made that trade. I have no record of it. And
I have no recollection of that
it's
conversation.
like, can you imagine? Like, and then, but there's also stories like my friend Walter completely bailed me out. He knew I was so screwed. There was a huge gap up opening. I was short. And he just said, I'll get you out at the first cash print on the index open. And without it, he took the hit, and I would have been blown out had he not taken the hit. And he was just a
Wow.
friend.
Yeah.
And he will come on one day, but we
Oh,
won't ask
good.
him.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love
Yeah,
to
we
hear
won't.
that story.
Yeah, we won't. No, we won't ask him. Don't, please don't.
Let,
Save my bacon.
so let me ask you a question from those days and people that you used to trade with.
Right.
How many of them are still trading? Because it's so different today. How were traders able to make a switch or not? You seem like somebody who's been able to make that switch, but I don't hear of a lot of people that have the same background that you do
When
that were
people
able to
die,
make the switch.
they go missing. It's just, and when people blow out, they go missing, and or retire and they don't trade, they go missing. It seems as though the people who still trade, um, either can reach out or do reach out or occasionally reach out, and then, or when they come through town, we have a drink
Yeah.
and talk, or I would think even with anybody watching in the chat, that if they, if you're in New York, look me up and we'll go have a beer and talk about things. I mean, I think that it's a combination of trauma and experience. And there's that sort of battlefield mentality of having survived in the foxhole as whether you like them or not, you still have that shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's worth being friends with people who understand the process. Like, I know me and you are so different. I learned that the other night.
For sure
We
we
are
are.
so different. And I was like, it took me a while to figure out how you were thinking. And that class with uh, Jay helped a lot to figure you out. Anyway,
Yeah, he was supposed to come on tonight, wasn't he? Or did we not? We probably didn't say anything to him, but
and so,
we'll have him on. But the thing about Jesus though is he's not going to show his face. You're like, who is he in witness protection? What's the deal with that?
or his name,
True.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and so, anyway, the offer stands. If you're in New York, find me. I'm on Twitter or LinkedIn, and hang out, come visit work, sit next to me. We have plenty of room and a great view.
Are you the only one in there trading? Is there anybody else in there trading? I think I've
No,
asked you this before.
we have some some of the biggest silver
Guys
traders.
calling.
No, we have some of the biggest silver market makers in the world here, as
Oh,
well as some of the biggest gold brokers in the world, some enormous crude traders here, and I'm friends with some of the biggest natural gas traders. You know, it's all NYMEX and COMEX stuff.
where's the gear? There's nothing behind you.
Right. I'm sitting in the window overlooking the Statue of Liberty,
Right.
and they don't want any distractions. So they have little offices
Oh, I see.
around the corner that look north.
Okay.
And then we sit down and say, what do you think? And so the silver guys were like, it could go to 16 or it could go to 30.
Mm-hmm.
It's so random, they don't know. Are you around next Wednesday?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I am because I have this crazy ass puppy who I'm trying to get whipped into shape.
Yeah,
So
sure.
he's a 9-pound ball of chaos. He's sitting here taking he's having a little alone time because he's up to so much crap. Do you want to see him?
I'm sure everybody else does.
Yeah, all right, hang on. I'll wake his dumb ass up because
Oh,
then I've got to end there because then I've got to go take him outside so it isn't shit in my house. So come here,
Okay,
buddy.
then.
Come here.
And,
Everybody wants to see you. Come here.
and to everybody else, follow me on Twitter. I'm posting up these maps that are used. We use artificial intelligence and the organically segmented profiles.
Hi to the people. There he is.
Hey, dog.
This is what's ruining. He's killing me.
Jesus Christ.
He's killing me.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming.
Thanks for coming, guys.
We'll try and keep it pertinent and entertaining. And let's see, remember that you can buy, if you have a hankering as to some direction, you can buy premium that Ranch is selling.
Get
on
me some
Friday,
dog food. I need dog food.
Friday
Otto
afternoons.
needs dog food.
What? Hey, if you're selling premium, do it before Friday afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Right. And if you're buying premium, wait till the dregs of the late Friday.
Yep.
And Stottlemyre used to say markets change directions on 3-day weekends. I haven't seen it happen, but he's made 70 million trading grains.
Well, we'll see.
Right. So thank you all for coming.
All right, you
Good to
guys.
see you around. What's the dog's name?
Otto.
Otto. It's like German.
Swiss. He's a Bernese Mountain Dog.
He is?
He's a Bernedoodle. So he's part Bernese Mountain Dog and part poodle. So I looked for a Swiss name and that's why he got Otto.
Nice paint job on the thing.
I wanted to call him, I know it's a good paint job. I wanted to call him Albert because Einstein, which he's the opposite of. So whenever he does something stupid, I'm calling him Einstein. So.
Thank you all for coming.
All right, guys.
Later.
Laters.